But when did the Bogdanovich, from your reporting and your sources, when did it become really serious, and when was the interest really mutual between the two sides?
Okay, so there were. This is how the Jazz board kind of looked. The kind of rough plan, and there was some refinement to this, but the rough outline was this: go after Nico. Nico was number one on Utah's board, and I think it was because of positional balance and the fact that beyond the positional balance, there was a thought that they would not have to spend the entire 17.6 or whatever that it took to get Bogdanovich on Nikola Mirotic. So they offered him in between $14 and $15 million. They thought they had a deal that was going to be, one of those, free agency announcements around 4 p.m. Mountain Time. And then Nikola Mirotic, because of family pressure, went to Spain. The Jazz quickly did a about face and a pivot to Bogdanovich, who they thought was the better player, but he's a natural small forward as opposed to Nico being a natural power forward. So they're going to have to do a little bit of tinkering with the lineup a little bit, and obviously they had to pay him a little bit more. And the other thing, the other reason why Nico was number 2 on the board Bojan was number 2 on the board, was because they thought it was going to take a whole lot more to get Bojan than it would have taken to get Nico. As it turns out, Bojan really wanted to come to the Jazz. And as soon as the Jazz expressed significant interest, that interest was immediately mutual. And the Jazz sold him. They said, hey, come with us. We feel right now that we have a team that can compete for a championship. And I don't think, and this is just speculation on my part, I don't think that the Indiana Pacers are quite in that realm. The Jazz have just gotten Mike Conley. Bogdanovich would have gives them a third really dynamic scorer. So it was an easy sell to them, and they got it done really quickly. They had a meeting set up in Los Angeles at 3 p.m. Pacific time, right at the starting bell of free agency. They had an outline of a deal, and they got a deal done within about a half an hour.
He's 30 years old, Tony. I talked to your colleague, Scott Agnes, about an hour ago because I wanted a little background on Bojan, a guy that covered him. And I'll tell you what, he seems to tick all the Jazz boxes. He works. He said he didn't take but one day off of practice. He's played 70-plus games every year in his NBA career. His efficiency, his production stepped up last year after Oladipo got hurt. He's a guy that doesn't want the limelight. He just wants to go out, play, and compete. And he's a tough guy without telling you he's a tough guy. It sounds like he checks all the boxes. Nitpick for me just a little bit. Tell me something that might be a little bit of a red flag or something that might not be great about the fit.
Well, the red flag to me is the contract. I was told during this process that it was a 3-year contract. Comes out to a 4-year contract. So he's going to be 34 on the last year of this deal. So the question is he still going to be the Bojan Bogdanovich that the Jazz are getting today? I don't think he's great defensively. I do think he's a lot better than Nikola Mirotic defensively. I don't think he's as good as Joe Ingles defensively. So that puts him at about average or above average. So the question is, like, right now, to me, the Jazz are without question one of the 3 best teams in the Western Conference. But the question is, to me right now, is if Kawhi Leonard goes to the Los Angeles Lakers and the Jazz get into a series with the Lakers, and you have LeBron James on one side and Kawhi Leonard on the other side, can Bogdanovich hold up on either end against those guys? Same thing with Joe, even though I think Joe can hold up defensively. So those are the questions. Those are the kind of nitpicks. And plus the Jazz, I don't know if this is a nitpick, but like I said with Nikola Mirotic, that Nikola has had positional balance. which is one of the reasons why he was so high on Utah's board, that doesn't exist with Bogdanovich. So somebody's going to have to take a step back. It might mean Joe Ingles comes off the bench. It might mean that the Jazz have to go out and still get a starting power forward on this roster and only have the vet minimum to do it. But those are some of the things. But to me, it's a home run signing because he's one of the best shooters in the NBA. The guy shot 45% on wide open 3-point looks this past year. So, those open looks that weren't going down against the Houston Rockets, they're going to go down now. He's got all the gravity in the world. Same thing with Joe Ingles. The driving lanes for Donovan Mitchell and Mike Conley are going to be more open than either one of those guys have ever seen in their careers.
Tony Jones with us talking Bojan Bogdanović in free agency. The Jazz now have 3 starters that are 30 years or older. Bogdanović is 30, Ingles is 31, and Mike Conley's 32. So this isn't necessarily the young Utah Jazz anymore, is it?
No, but they're still young in key places. I mean, Donovan Mitchell is going to be 23 when the season starts. Rudy Gobert is 27. Royce O'Neal is 25. Dante Exum is going to be 24. George Niang, he's in his early 20s. So, I mean, it's still I get what you're saying. Like, a lot of the core now 30, early 30s, but the most important player on the team is 23.
No, to be very clear, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. In fact, it might be a better thing now, Tony, because you've got 3 veteran players that are in their 30s that have been through it before in Conley, in Ingles, and Bogdanović that are in their 30s. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. We had that narrative for a few years that the Jazz were a young team. They're not a young team anymore, but you've got those 3 guys are all still in prime. Your prime generally goes till about 32 or 33. In that 27 to 32, 33 range. So I think you've still got 3 guys that are kind of in the prime of their career, with Rudy beginning to enter it and Donovan not quite there yet.
Right. To me, it says that the window is now, and I think that's what you were kind of getting at. Like, the Jazz have to go for it now. Like, Golden State's finally taking a step back. Houston's kind of taking a step back. I think Portland's taking a step back. It'll be interesting to see what Kawhi Leonard does. But if Kawhi Leonard does not go to the Lakers, I have a hard time not saying that the Jazz are one of the top 2 teams in the Western Conference and have a real chance of advancing to the NBA Finals.
Let's play the what-if game here with a couple of lineups. You could go Conley, Mitchell, Ingles, Bogdanović, Gobert, but that doesn't leave you much of a punch coming off the bench as of now. That's not to say they're not going to add something, but as of right now, what's the down? You playing devil's advocate, what if you stick Davis in there? And I know that people say, well, then you get basically what you had with Derek Favors, but what if you went Conley, Mitchell, Bogdanović at the 3, which you said is more of his natural position anyway, Davis and Gobert, and then you bring Ingles off the bench as a little bit of a scoring punch?
If you bring Ingles off the bench, it wouldn't be Davis that would be at power forward. I think it would be Royce O'Neal.
Royce O'Neal, okay.
That is assuming that the Jazz don't go out and get somebody like a Jeff Green. If the Jazz are able to go out and get somebody like a Jeff Green to come in and play for the minimum, then that person becomes a placeholder starter for 20 minutes a night, and then you close with the line. Then you close with Ingles and Bogdanović on the floor at the same time. The Jazz are hesitant to play Bogdanović and Ingles at power forward at major minutes for an entire season because, they're 30, 31, and, you don't want to wear those guys down. And there are certain matchups that will wear them down. But I think that for lineup balance, I think there's a real chance that Joe Ingles is your 6th man this year because, he can I think Joe Ingles is one of those guys that plays the same amount of minutes, whether you start him or bring him off the bench, and you can have him run the second unit. And I think that second unit, especially now that the Jazz have waived Howell Neto, I think that second unit is going to definitely need some playmaking, and I think that Ingles is a natural fit there.
So with veteran minimums, because that's really what they've got left to play with, are you looking at a third point guard and maybe a power forward with your veteran minimums?
You might be looking at a third point guard, or you might be looking at Justin Wright Foreman.
Okay.
I think now. See, here's the thing: like, a lot of the money on the market is gone. I know that we're like less than 1 day in the free agency, but so much of the money is already gone that I think that the Jazz are just kind of trying to wait things out and see and see who kind of falls through the cracks, so to speak. And I know I keep bringing up Jeff Green, but I think Jeff Green is a name that I've heard that the Jazz could try to sign. Now, you know, from what I heard, they wanted him for, you know, the room level exception. But obviously that's gone. That went to Ed Davis. So now I think that, you know, if you gotta try to get Jeff Green or J. Michael Green or one of those guys, it's going to have to be on the minimum. And it's going to be a test to see how much of the lure is for the Jazz, to see if they can get a good veteran on the minimum to come and try and play for a championship.